The Jimmy Olsen Radio Network.
Spinal adjustments provided by Dr. Chad Rolfson. The Spinal Tuning Chiropractic Center is a Des Moines area low flat fee per month unlimited chiropractic care practice. When life happens, just adjust. Schedule today at spinaltuning.com. The thoughts and opinions of this program are simply those of the hosts and the guests and not always agreed upon by anyone in the universe, let alone the hosts and the guests. This is the Daily Planet. I am Jimmy Olsen, and I had so much fun with PJ the last time in our last podcast. Thank you so much for the feedback I'm getting. I asked him to come back again. How you doing, PJ?
Wonderful, Jimmy. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. So those of you that are, lambasting me already because I forgot the father, sorry. Father PJ, how are you?
I'm excellent, James. How are you?
By the way, Father PJ, he is a co-host of Be Not Afraid, a show that you can check out on Iowa Catholic Radio, also podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And he is the pastor. Actually, I came up with a new title for you. You are the Chief Spiritual Officer of Christ the King.
I like it. The CSO.
That's what I'm doing. I'm just starting to come up with, titles for people. I mean, I came up with my own CEO. I am the Chief Entertainment Officer for, my company.
Daily Planet?
Well, the Daily Planet, but, I've got the DJ business and stuff that I do on the side. Chief Entertainment Officer. It was funny. I was talking to a guy I worked with years ago who's doing consulting now. His name is Kipper McGee, which if you go back into my Daily Planet, I had a interview with him a few months ago. But I told him that, and he goes, man, that's good. I'm going to have to remember that. I'm going to share that with some other people.
I listened to that interview only because as I scrolled through, I saw that you were interviewing someone named Kipper McGee.
Oh, seriously? Actually, I worked with Kipper years ago. Kipper, I mean, very, very smart radio branding man. In fact, I worked with him at a radio station in Des Moines where we are. And then, of course, from Des Moines, he, moved on and ended up in California, ended up at, in Chicago, worked at the big top 40 station there, doing both programming and promotions, just kind of like all over the board. I mean, it just proves that radio and broadcasting is a very small business because you might be a program director one day and a promotions director the next.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So the whole idea of why I reached out, because I was filling in yesterday morning on the local country station here in town, KJJY, because it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and Cumulus actually observes the federal holiday. And so I took some time, so I was able to fill in McCoy in the morning. And when I was going through some of my information to talk about during the show, which we call show prep or show preparation, I ran across, do you know what yesterday was, PJ?
I don't. What was it, Jimmy?
So it was Blue Monday. And we're not talking the song by Fats Domino.
I was wondering.
Which I would play that, but, we are under different rules over the internet than on radio, and I'd get in trouble for that. So if you don't know the song, you need to go check it out. But yeah, so Blue Monday, but not the song. So there was a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist. I went the wrong way with that.
You went the wrong direction.
A psychologist who came up with the term Blue Monday. He's actually a British psychologist. This happened back in 2005. And he says that January 18th, or that Monday, the third week of January, that Monday is like the perfect mix where we're just coming off the holidays. So you are dealing with the holiday debt. You, depending on what part of the area, world, country you live on, you could have bad weather. We're coming right off of New Year's. So you either are failing or have failed your New Year's resolutions. Also, you're realizing how far away your next real vacation actually is. So he ended up labeling this as Blue Monday. In fact, he even added into that low motivation at work. Which,
yeah, no, I'm seeing the calculation that he used to try and try and come up with this, and wow, it's like the most depressing algebra problem ever.
So here's the funny thing. I also realized that the third week of January is Happiness Week. So Happiness Week kicks off with Blue Monday, which the funny thing was the psychologist said that he was not trying to make the day sound negative. It was supposed to be more of a way to inspire people to take action and make bold life decisions. You called it Blue Monday. Blue.
Right.
I guess we. I mean,
what if it was like Yellow Monday? Yellow's a happier color, isn't it?
Is yellow? How about Pink Monday? I mean, what would make it better? What would make it a little more inspirational than blue? What color is tied to happy?
I don't. Maybe the problem isn't with blue, but like with shades, right? So if it was like Cerulean Monday or
Sign Monday,
Sunday or something, yeah, right, exactly. Then maybe it'd be all right.
I have no idea. Well, I mean, I just thought that was interesting. So that launches into, again, like I said, Blue Monday kicks off Happiness Week. And there was something, an article I shared with you a few weeks back that I thought that really does come important because, I mean, well, especially you with what you do. I mean, the holidays are insane for you.
Mm-hmm.
And even that first month of the year,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to find, if you can, the downtime because of everything that you're having to deal with and put together. And it was an article that I ran across, the 7 types of rest that every person needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times, and this was pulled off of a TED Talk, if I remember correctly, this article was.
Right.
But I think when it comes to those blue days, those depressed days, not saying that something doesn't happen. By the way, we are not doctors. Well, PJ is a doctor in training, but we're not talking psychologist doctor. I paid $25 for my doctorate online, but again, we're not psychologists by any means here. But I mean, I think a lot of times when you're dealing with that, not only that depression piece, but sometimes it really comes to what you're doing to reset yourself, to kind of give yourself that break and allowing yourself to deal with the stress. I mean,
the article about the 7 different types of rest is really kind of like a summary, right, of a book that this woman wrote, Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And the book's called Sacred Rest: Recover Your Life, Renew Your Energy, and Restore Your Sanity. And apparently it was a good enough book that they decided, hey, we should give her a TED Talk, right?
Maybe we'll get a TED Talk after this podcast, BJ.
We'll get some kind of a talk. I don't know if we're TED worthy yet, but the move, I think, fundamentally is that she's trying to help people redefine rest,
mm-hmm.
Because we often focus exclusively on sleep, right? We equate rest with sleep. And she's trying to tell people part of the reason you're having trouble with sleep isn't because you've got a sleep disorder. It's because you're otherwise not resting in ways that are appropriate for your body. And so your brain can't turn off when you need to go to sleep.
And this is, where we need our resident counselor here in town, Randy Keel. We probably should have had him part of this conversation.
Yeah, he'd jump right on.
But I think the idea really comes down to, like you just said, you're having issues sleeping. So it doesn't mean you have a sleep disorder, but it also can really come down to even the depression piece. You're not giving yourself time to bounce back from something that happened. You're expecting yourself to be quicker and faster than what you're allowing, and not giving yourself, as they call that mourning period,
right,
when something happens.
Yeah, I think it's anybody that's ever suffered from depression, clinical or situational or seasonal, right, knows that paradoxically you're more tired and you may even sleep more raw hours, but you stay more tired.
Right.
And that's part of what goes wrong here, right? Is that we think it's like, and it's intuitive enough, I suppose. You learn when you're a kid, you need to sleep so that you're not tired, and that's true. But it isn't just about sleep. There are other kinds of rest and relaxation that we need to be attentive to as well, which will enable both better sleep, but also better work.
Well, right, because the first one that she, of course, talked about in this article was the physical rest, which the physical rest is true. But then, and we've been hearing about this for years. I mean, I'm sure you've heard a lot about this too, but it's the mental rest. It's the sensory rest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, let's go with the first one, that first one first, mental, which is actually the second type of rest in this article. And a lot of times you're trying to have that mental rest, but what are you doing that you are causing yourself to be more, you know, kind of like really getting your mind racing and going all the time. It's getting more stimulation rather than the rest, like drinking a huge cup of coffee.
Right. So the concern, right, is about sort of mental self-regulation, right? So the example she uses is your coworker, right, who's always on coffee and always kind of crabby.
Mm-hmm.
And what she says is, right, the problem there is, right, he struggles even when he goes to bed, even when he goes to sleep, to turn his brain off, to turn off the mind. And so you know what she recommends, right, is taking periodic breaks throughout the day, which are designed to get you to divert your attention to something else that's less mentally straining.
And sometimes it's not always the coffee, and sometimes it's not that. It could, even if you're a person who's very creative,
right?
When you go to bed at night and your brain just kind of like, oh, dude, what are you doing? I'm not ready. I got this great idea. Write this down.
That's exactly it. And so it's about sort of training your body and your mind for sort of patterns that are more helpful so that you can get real sleep. And then using the resources that are available. So like if ideas come to you at night, keep a notepad by your bed so that you can write them down, sort of thing, right? But
people keep telling me that, and I keep forgetting the notepad.
Eventually something will take.
Someday soon. I don't know. Well, and that's so true. I mean, it's finding that way to take that mental break. I mean, it's no different than, you know, resting your eyes at a computer. You know, they say always take a break every 20 minutes because of the strain that the computer screen does to your eyes throughout the day.
Well, and so right, that's what she cues in for the third type of rest is sensory rest, that we need to rest our senses so that they don't get clogged. And so she mentioned specifically, right, the whole question of screens. And, you know, up until a year ago, we were primarily worried about screens for kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working your kids' screen time, right?
Right.
But now that so many people have moved into virtual workplaces, many of us are on screens 8, 10, 15 hours a day, and not for fun, but because it's our job, right?
Well, and I think a lot of times, even before, I think over the last year, we've realized it even more. But I think a lot of times we've been on those screens more than the kids have been, but we've been focused more on the kids than we have been on the adults. You know, it's 2 hours before you go to bed. Put your phone away. Well, hey, mom, dad, put your phone away too. You know,
That's exactly right.
You need that break from that screen. And you've heard the interviews, you've read the articles. It's the same thing. You need to be able to put that phone down and let your eyes rest because of that stimulation that you're getting from that blue screen, because you put your phone down and now I'm going straight to bed. Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. What kind of rest do you struggle most with, Jimmy?
Yes. You know, for me, it's kind of all over the place. I mean, there is this physical rest. And a lot of times our jobs really dictate that too. So I'm not getting as much sleep as I should. As I get older, though, I'm finding that I have to make sure I get that. Otherwise, I might end up with a headache the next day. But then at the same time, I think it comes to, especially for me, when I get to the end of the day and everything that I do, and it's also computer or even mind stimulated because of, I mean, even when we go into the fourth is that creative rest, but I mean, the creativity that I have to do every day, the dealing with screens that I work through, you know, every day as well, because, you know, being in radio, we're dealing with screens now. It's all on a computer. It's not like you're looking at a CD when you're doing things.
Right.
But then when you tie all that together, it comes into that. So by the end of the day, I am just mentally exhausted. I am checked out. And sometimes I fight with myself coming into the creativity of, you might be mentally exhausted, but my creative part still needs to work. We need to think of something. We need to do something creative. What's some good idea that we can come up with? And then, of course, it's just this ongoing vicious cycle that I deal with. I mean, what about you, PJ?
Yeah, yes, I do okay on the first. Like I'm pretty good about trying to make sure that I get reasonable sleep. Mm-hmm. I'm hard on myself. Like my job obviously involves a lot of other people's emotions.
Right.
And in order to be able to be an empathetic minister and not simply kind of a robot that maybe like dispenses sacraments or something.
Right. Take your leader.
Yeah, exactly. I like emotional rest is something that I struggle with. She talks about social rest, right? And possessing a social rest deficit. One of the things I struggle with most as a priest is that if I wanted to, I could eat probably every meal of every day, like out or like with other people, right? And while I miss not having sort of family dinner at home in a regular kind of way, it's first of all hard to keep a diet because when you go to people's houses or they take you out, it's always kind of a celebration, and that's hard to do because then you're just always eating really rich, fatty food.
Just get a salad. Come on. I'm celebrating with a salad because I feel for you.
Unless she's made, that's the whole problem. But then part of it is just like being on all the time. That's the hardest piece. And I know other people have that in different ways. I've had a lot of people talk to me about the difficulty of sort of the office intruding into your home.
Right.
So you've made a home office for the sake of being able to function during the pandemic. You live on Zoom basically, but now like it used to be, honey, don't bring your work home. Now, like literally your work is in your home.
Right.
And so while on the one hand, you might have a dog like I do or screaming kids sort of floating across the back of your screen or something, you could actually wind up with something worse where like you've got a boss in your bedroom.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, depending on where you're setting up that. And you actually just made a great comment, what you said about being on all the time. And that's something that you and I can really compare things on, because being in broadcast, people, I mean, you kind of know me. I mean, when you see me and when we've hung out, I really am kind of a low key guy. I mean, I assume I am. I mean, you tell me. I could be completely wrong.
I would agree with that altogether. But you are put in positions almost all the time where you have to be in some sense on.
Well, you listen to me on the air. I am totally not that guy.
Right.
Because, I am there to, as I say, I get paid to say stupid things.
Yeah.
Right. I'm there to entertain. I'm there to find out about Blue Monday and question, why is it Blue Monday and why is it kicking off Happiness Week? Would you explain this to me? But I mean, I've been to where I've been at a coffee shop. I'm just there having coffee. I'm writing in my journal. I'm reading. I'm listening to music. I'm just kind of chilling in my own little, creative realm, trying to come up with something. And then someone comes up to me. I'm like, hey, how you doing? We have a little, and they go, and then I get, in fact, there's a guy and he is terrible at this. He goes, are you okay? I go, I'm fine. I'm like, why do you ask? He goes, you're not that guy on the radio. Well, you're right. I'm not. That is a guy screaming on his tippy toes, being Mr. Happy. Not that I'm not Mr. Happy, but I'm there for a reason. It's like when you have, a perfect example where anybody can, you have friends or family coming over for the holidays. You're now entertaining them. So you have to be on to entertain them. That is exhausting.
Yeah.
Which comes into that the fourth type of rest that she was talking about, the creative rest, which it's that type of rest that is very real important, especially with what we're talking about right now. For anyone who is a problem solver or a brainstormer, because we need that creativity. We rely on that creativity. And if you are exhausted, you're not able to pull that out. And
that's right.
I'll be honest, I've been in areas like that. I have gotten depressed because I've not been able to flex, as we call it, that creative muscle.
That's right. So there's two things that strike me about that. Writers that have worked on long-term television programs like Cheers, that kind of thing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They will talk about how, like, almost invariably, the last season of a show is one of its worst,
right? Because
they're running out of steam. Maybe the last story is okay; they're able to bring some real closure to the characters or whatever. But the arcs are done. Like, people are losing interest. The artists have lost interest in the art that they're making, right? And so there's a real sort of creative deficit that happens. I think the other thing is in all of our lives, whether we're a creative person in the sense that we're an artist or a writer or making stuff or not, is the role of recreation in a healthy life. And it's not an accident, right? That even though we pronounce it recreation, the word really is recreation, to make new.
Right. And creation, creativity. Or the whole, sometimes I think when you are in that realm of kind of at your last step, your last string is being over creative.
Right. That's right. You're like trying to force a process that's supposed to happen naturally.
We're going to add a kid to the family, and now they've used that comment that you've heard in TV. They just jumped the shark. They add
the shark. That's right.
They're adding this because they need to add something. We got to do something. Well, yeah, but that wasn't it. And really what you were doing before was working fantastic. And what you did just kind of put a nail in the coffin.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right.
So with that recreation or that recreation, I mean, this is where at least and you would know, because you kind of force yourself into, your getaways where you do your, I'm sorry, the word is escaping me. When you take your weekends, man, I really did.
I don't know. Retreat? Is that what you're after?
Yes, retreat. You take your weekend retreats. I mean, they're talking about, going outside, getting some fresh air, taking a weekend. Maybe you are someone who does, your family or just you yourself, you like to go camping. Or just going to a park and walking around. Maybe you're near a place that, has, waterfalls or just something that you can just get out and away from everything to just kind of soak in what's around and try not to think of what you've been doing or what you need to do. And a lot of times I've found when I've done that, it's rejuvenated my creativity, and an idea might pop in my head while I'm taking that break.
Right. It's often when you're not trying as hard that it finally actually pops. And that really is the origin of, so the word recreation is real old, but the word recreation, like the way that we use it now for sort of to be an entertainment or a diversion or something, that really comes with the rise of theater around the time of Shakespeare.
Theater.
And the idea is that the amusement or the entertainment is not trivial, but that it literally sort of makes you new from the inside, in the way that a really compelling story has a way of stirring stuff in us in a way that, just a normal kind of joke might not. Now, speaking of jokes, you used a phrase a minute ago, jumping the shark. Do you know the origins of jumping the shark?
Give me the origins. I probably remember, but I'm just so mentally exhausted right now, I can't remember.
It was because you're not getting all 7 types of rest, Jimmy.
That's right. That's right.
So the phrase "jump the shark" comes from an old episode of Happy Days.
Oh,
you remember this?
Okay, yeah. Keep going.
So Fonzie has to jump over a shark, and it was done as a kind of a stunt to show off Henry Winkler's water skiing skills. But he literally jumps over a shark, and it's this whole kind of it's madcap in the way that Happy Days is. But I only learned about this recently because I am young enough. I only ever watched Happy Days on reruns.
Yes, I do have a few years on you.
But the our parish's annual auction was canceled this year because of the pandemic.
Right.
So we're doing a virtual one in April that is Happy Days themed, and our signature cocktail is called Jump the Shark. So I'll be teaching people online how to shake their own Jump the Shark.
Funny.
So tune into the Christ the King auction. We can use all the help.
That's right. We need your money. Please, please, please. You know, as you say, and of course, how bad does that sound? I can't remember. I've only been in, entertainment for 30 years. No, but as you say it, I remember that because that's where where it came from. But then I remember where they were talking about Family Ties. Remember Family Ties?
That's right.
Michael J. Fox, because they added the child in later because they were looking, again, this is where I was talking about the over creativity. They were looking for something. They had to do something to be different. So, they had the new baby and added this new child in, and it just kind of, Alex Keaton Jr. Right. But yeah, I mean, that's where you have to be careful, because if you're not getting those 7 types of rest, and then as you were talking about when you brought it up earlier, the emotional rest, that social rest. I mean, sometimes you just have to have that break away, because again, always being on, it just pulls that drain. And I'll be honest, I'm in radio and I'm in front of people all the time. I mean, yes, I'm in the business of being in front of people. And then I will make a comment to someone that I'm not really a people person. And then they tell me that I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the truth is I'm not really a people person. I am an introvert.
Yeah, you do much better alone and in smaller groups that way.
I'm used to being in a room with 4 walls by myself anyway. I mean, come on. It's just.
That's right. What the Dr. Dalton Smith names as the final type of rest, I think, is really interesting. Both because I'm a priest, but in general, I think there's wisdom here, right?
This gives me power. Listen to it. I've been telling you this for years.
She talks about spiritual rest,
right?
And this is something that I've, in some ways, only really come to appreciate as a priest, but I've become very, very aware of since the pandemic, once most people stop being able to attend church regularly. And here's what I mean. One of the things that happens as a priest or as a minister, which is different than most other people, is that our Sunday is necessarily a work day for us.
Right.
And it's usually the heaviest of the work days for us. And so while obviously the scripture admonishes the keeping of the Sabbath, the person kind of running the Sabbath has a real hard time doing that. And even in the old law, right, there are all these kind of exceptions that allow for the priest to be able to do the things they need to be able to do because they got to like run the service for the Sabbath. But what that means is...
See, that brings up another question. Now, because technically the Sabbath was Saturday, not Sunday.
That's right, which is still clear in most Romance languages.
Right, but then Saturday, to that point, when you really look in history, there wasn't really a service though on Saturday. I mean, it really was a day of rest.
That's right. The service was Friday night,
right?
And then the day was really off. So it really tracks much more like what we would think of as holiday,
right?
Something more like Thanksgiving for most families or something like that, right?
Sure.
But the reason I think this is significant is because the notion of Sabbath, even in the Old Testament, right, is a lot broader than just don't muzzle your ox on Saturday.
What are you doing muzzling that ox, boy?
It's much more about the number 7 is an important number biblically,
right?
But that it's much more about ensuring that there's like scheduled time off. because it's not only the Sabbath, the notion of Sabbath is not just limited to the Saturday thing, right? But every 7 years, there's a sort of Sabbath for the land, right? So you can't plant in the same way. So that there's this idea that nature has built into itself this every so often rest, and that you need to rest.
It's like it set that schedule. It has put in its schedule that it needs to have this rest to rejuvenate itself.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so I think the reason I think that's especially important here is because for most, certainly for Catholics, for many mainline Protestants, for Orthodox Christians, and I think to a certain degree, frankly, for a lot of not observant Jews, what Sabbath means, whether that's Saturday or Sunday, is simply going to church or going to temple. But the rest of the day, you might just do whatever you might, or you might choose not to work.
It's Sunday, fun day, baby. Let's go.
Exactly. And as a result,
not getting much of a rest in overall.
That's it. And so what I've heard time and again since things have been shut down, or since people, even though we're open again, a lot of people starting to come back to church, is it's hard to tell the difference of the days. I mean, how many times a week do people say, "Now, what day is it?" Like they can't keep track because the ordinary patterns that marked our days and weeks out just aren't present anymore. That's a feature of the same thing here, and I think that's worth our thinking about really seriously, because what that tells me is the only thing that was really making this intelligibly different was getting up and going to church.
Yeah, I mean, it gave you something that was a schedule to go. This is how my week is starting, or this is what I'm doing.
That's right.
To really kind of kick that week off. I mean, you even have the flip side of that, because a lot of things you've heard during the pandemic too is how people have slowed down, and then it's like, oh, I've had a chance to breathe. Oh, I didn't notice that scratch on the wall because I was so busy. I mean, we've all been to the point that you were so busy. I mean, let's go to the opposite end of that. You've also been so busy that you almost do not know what day it is. Because you forget what day it is because you're just go. The only way you know is because you're set so much to a schedule, which one of the things that I've heard them say for years, just like, as you say, going to church or going to mass, but, she was talking about adding prayer and meditation, community involvement, which would be going to church or going to mass, but it's scheduling that time. I mean, there was a thing that I did years ago. I was actually coming up with a calendar that I had this idea. I was coming up with this calendar because, everybody does this and everyone's going to become a millionaire by doing this. But I just had this idea. And the big part about that was scheduling your time, scheduling your break. If you're going to, so this even goes back to after I had lost my weight, when I started going to the gym, you need to take time out to take care of yourself physically. Schedule your time at the gym. And make it like one of those meetings that you cannot break. The same thing as taking some time for prayer or meditation. That is a time. I have a 15-minute time period at 2:15 in the afternoon. This is what I'm going to do. That's a meeting you can't break. It's all about your mentality and how important, PJ, how important are you to yourself?
Yeah, probably not nearly enough.
But that really is what it comes down to.
That is the question. That is the question.
So, you can put that Zoom meeting in your calendar, put your time to go work out in the calendar, put your time to go for a walk in the calendar, put your time to have dinner with your family at the dinner table in your calendar, especially now, as we've been talking about, everyone's working from home. Schedule that. Maybe now is even the point of you get lunch, everybody's home. You could have lunch and dinner together.
Yeah, that's right.
You could have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. Well, maybe you don't want to be around your family that much. Hey, it's just an idea.
Well, yeah, I think the other thing that I've heard, and this would tie very in well with both sort of sensory rest to a certain degree, probably emotional rest, right? Is being disciplined in our not eating in front of the screen all the time, right? Even if we're alone, but just quietly, contemplatively enjoying your bowl of cereal and your coffee in the morning or whatever it is, right? But just like taking time, being slow and deliberate about certain things, and not constantly filling your head and your heart and your body with noise and distraction.
Come on, man, a full plate and Netflix, I'm happy.
I understand, and I do it myself sometimes. I'm not gonna like pretend that I'm immune to this, but one of the things that I encounter very often with people, as a priest, a lot of what I deal with is people struggling with behaviors that they don't like, and I'm genuinely convinced a large part of the reason that people turn so often to pornography is because they only know how to be on or off. They can't do sort of in between.
Right.
And so part of the porn thing is the only way they know how to relax is to cause themselves to absolutely relax. Yeah, exactly. And so you're welcome for that one. But on some level, I think, right, if
thank you, Frankie.
If the TV that we were watching was more meaningful, right? So that if you were like, if you were sitting around watching Masterpiece Theater all the time, this would not be your only way to sort of chill, right?
Right.
And that's the problem is that we settle too often for sort of quick fixes, emotionally, entertainment wise, recreation wise, and even rest wise, when in fact what we need is something much more meaningful and deliberate and conscious. But that requires discipline.
Right. Well, it's that we want that quick fix. We've heard about it for years that we're in that fast food mentality. We want it now. We wanted it yesterday. But, again, unless you're going to go through the whole Frankie Goes to Hollywood and relax, then you need to actually realize it takes time. And even to relax, you've got to dial down, because sometimes you got to relax before you can relax.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So it was the 7 types of rest that every person needs. And I think it's very important because we have to really be conscious about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and when we're doing it. And if it's one of those things, and really when you start scheduling, and we've all heard this, if you do something for 6 weeks, it becomes a habit. So if you start scheduling something, either being, going to mass so you can go, and maybe right now you can't go, it's doing it on YouTube or Facebook.
Well, I think where people have gotten themselves really kind of boggled up, right, is if it's only that. So the deal
right,
was,
it's not that, it's that plus, add everything together. This is just one of the many pieces you need to really tie together.
I think what was going on for a lot of people with church was, right, like minimally going to church forced you to displace yourself from your house.
Right.
So like if you bothered to get up and go to church or go to mass or go to temple, then you might on the way home do lunch or breakfast out, or you might stop and you might go for a walk around the lake or something like that, right? You might do something else. But when this is the struggle with virtual church, right, is when it's just basically another television program, even if it's a mildly interactive one, it's hard to see how like church is different than Netflix. And why do I have to wait till next week for the next episode?
Right.
And so it's planning a whole day that looks a little bit different, or being more intentional with a lot of our time, and not just the hour or two that we set aside for deliberate prayer meditation.
Right. Well, and like you said, you even said it there too, making it a little different. We just did a episode on, in fact, I believe it just aired today on Be Not Afraid. And we were talking about the Bible. We're talking about, scripture, because, you have the new, Word of God Sunday.
That's right.
That has been introduced over the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes, but when I was talking about, like, when I first started losing weight, we were talking about reading the Bible, and I didn't really start reading it, but I started listening to it through the Bible app.
Right.
I was doing it at the gym. So I knew when that 20-minute, reading or whatever was done, I knew my workout was done.
Yeah. It marked another part of your life too.
Right. So it's like, as you said, it's recategorizing how you're doing that. So maybe you have you can't leave your home for whatever the reason is. Figure out a way to schedule that to make it different. Or people that I've even talked to, they say they're going to go and, watch it or listen to it. I mean, a lot of it isn't always, viewing, it's just listening.
Right.
But they still dress up like they're going to go. They still put on, as at least for me growing up, you heard it all the time because everybody was always put your Sunday best on because you're taking your brand new Cadillac to church to show it off.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's just being a little more intentional on how you do it, along with where you do it. I mean, we've got to get creative a little bit.
I'm with you.
The best way we can, anyway. Well, cool. Well, PJ, thank you, dude. It's always great talking to you. And like I said, I saw this. I'm going, we have to tackle this. Speaking of tackling, so I know we're going to have you on to do something. Where are you on these stories that you're writing?
Oh, I've got a couple that are in the kit to go that I think you'd be.
Do you?
Yeah.
Are they ready?
That recreation for me. I've got two that are definitely ready, and a couple more that probably in the next week or so would be fit for the hopper.
All right. Well, yeah. So as you can tell, PJ going to be one of my regulars on the Daily Planet, and you've been listening to that. If you enjoyed this episode, thank you very much for listening, and be sure to share it with others on social media. You can also follow me on social media, both Facebook and Twitter at My Buddy Jimmy. You could probably even find Father PJ on social media as well. Then you can even find me on YouTube at My Buddy Jimmy 101. And what is it? Basically, Facebook, Twitter, and all that. It's what? Christ the King? Is that
Christ the King Des Moines? Yeah. Christ the King Des Moines is my handle. Yep.
So check it out. Again, if you enjoyed this, thank you very much for listening. Share it with others, and be sure to check us out again. So thank you so much for listening to the Daily Planet. I'm Jimmy Olsen.
The Jimmy Olsen Radio Network.